Welcome back to another episode of Around the World. This is episode 12 as we continue to roll along through this NBA season. Main topic of today's video is just simply going to be continuing along through the NBA Cup. Now that we have that, there's no main topics for today. I'm not going to talk contender pretender, not going to talk any standings projections or anything like that. We'll get that I think more after the in-season tournament wraps up, the NBA Cup wraps up. So we're going to go right into the NBA Cup, starting first with our community question as always, which is related to the NBA Cup, and that is, do you have the Cavs or Celtics winning the game tomorrow on Tuesday? The biggest game of the season so far might end up being the biggest game in the regular season, period. Cavs are 15-0, just the fourth team ever to start out 15-0, going up against the championship favorites at the moment in the Boston Celtics, 11-3. They were dominant last year. They're on pace to be pretty much just as dominant this year. It's going to be a massive game, not only for the in-season tournament standings, but also just a big game to really see how legit the Cavs are. If the Cavs can come out and play the Celtics close in a road game, I think that would be a huge point, a huge point of emphasis in this season. That the Cavs are going to be legit in a season. I think where we all thought it was going to be a battle between the Celtics, the Knicks, the Sixers, teams like that. And now all of a sudden the Cavs could put themselves in the driver's seat to be the one seed in this very, very stacked Eastern Conference. So I think I am going to take the Celtics. It's an in-season tournament game. It's a regular season game, so it's not necessarily. I'd feel way more confident in this pick if it was a playoff game. If it's a playoff game, I'm taking the Celtics 10 out of 10 times, just based off what I've seen the last couple of years. But I think I am just going to take the Celtics because I do think they're just that good. The Celtics definitely can have off nights. They definitely can let up some big offensive performances. We saw them lose to the Pacers, and I think the Pacers scored like 135 in that game. So they're not immune. They're not immune to taking losses or having close games or anything. But the Cavs have just played some pretty close games with their lower opponents. The Bulls, they did just take care of business against the Hornets the other day without Donovan Mitchell, but they have played some relatively close games that I feel like if they have one of those performances, the Celtics are going to take advantage and I think get like a 10-point win if that is the case. But biggest game of the season to date, I am beyond excited. I will definitely have my eyes on that game on Tuesday. Now, let's move into the NBA Cup games that actually have happened. This will be a little bit of a shorter episode. I can't lie. Like I said, no main core topic. We're just going to go ahead and bounce around the league and what happened. Starting first with Friday night. NBA Cup games. Take a look at the schedule here of those games. We had, I'm mixing my sheets up. Here we go. Cleveland, as we talked about, stayed undefeated, beat Chicago. Golden State got a nice win over the Grizzlies. I believe Steph Curry didn't play the fourth quarter at all for like one of the first times in a long time, and it wasn't even really a blowout. I mean, they were up by quite a bit until the end of the game, but I don't think enough to warrant Steph Curry not playing the entire quarter. New Orleans beats Denver. We'll talk about Denver a little bit later with them struggling without Jokic. Miami beats Indiana. Houston beats the Clippers, and Houston also off to an incredible start this season. I expect to talk about them more once we get into that contender versus pretender list because at the moment they certainly are not looking like the fluke that I thought they were at the beginning of the season. New York gets a win over Brooklyn with, I believe, Brunson's game winner, if I'm not mistaken. OKC knocks off Phoenix. Orlando knocks off Philadelphia. And then we get into the game I want to talk about the most, Minnesota-Sacramento. Overtime game. This game had absolutely everything. Absolutely everything. So the Wolves go up early on by about 10, kind of let the Kings come back into it, and then they really pull away. I mean, 15, 20-point lead. And then the Mike Tyson fight comes on, Mike Tyson, Jake Paul, and everyone kind of looks away. And I still have the game on my phone, kind of half watching, and I'm just watching this lead get deleted. Just absolutely decimated. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it goes from Minnesota up 16, 17, 18 to Minnesota up 2, and we finally call a timeout. And that's one thing I want to talk about. Chris Finch is a phenomenal coach. He's led some great offenses and great defenses, and the Wolves to their best years they've had pretty much as an entire franchise. And throughout all of it, there's been one constant thing that he struggles at. Well, I guess two. End of games. He's very, very. His teams always struggle at the end of games, but he also really struggles with timeout use. I mean, he will just let his team hang out there to to dry. Like, I mean, he hangs them out to dry. It's bad. I mean, we're talking like 10-0 run, no timeout. We're talking 15-0 run, no timeout. 13-2 run, nothing. He calls it like at the worst possible times, and this kills playoff momentum too. We've seen this happen in playoff games, both last year and years prior against the Grizzlies and against the Nuggets in the series that we did lose. But I mean, you're talking like, oh, we have a 12-point lead, right? They go 3-pointer. Any coach, most coaches around the league, I think, okay, that's a timeout. Let's calm down. Chris Finch waits until they tie the game or go up 2 to call a timeout. And I just very much disagree with that. And I think it's been a major, major problem. And it very nearly cost them in this game. But the main point of the game is that De'Aaron Fox 60-point game, the highest scoring game of the season. The first player, perhaps the only player, that will drop 60 points this season. Giannis did drop 59 the other night. But just Fox got that one extra point. He was ridiculously efficient from the field. I think he was like 20-something for 35. Just an incredible performance. And it shadowed another great performance from Anthony Edwards, who had 36 points, quite a few three-pointers. And, of course, the very, very big clutch shot at the end of overtime where he kind of just put up a prayer and it went through, and that ended up being the dagger as Minnesota kept themselves alive in their group, because one more loss and they would most certainly be unable to make it along to the next round into, the knockout stages of the NBA Cup. So keeping their hopes alive, they now have to go out there and I believe beat like Houston and the Clippers, and I think that could potentially secure themselves a spot in that next round. 2 more games to go on this Friday. Pistons get another win. They beat Toronto, and the Pistons actually, I can't lie, have had a really, really nice start to the season. 7-8, 5 seed out east right now. I thought I overpredicted them by predicting them to be like 12th. But in this weak Eastern Conference, if they're going to take advantage of the slow starts by the Bucks, by the Sixers, and just take advantage of the mediocrity in this conference, they're going to be just fine. I mean, you look back down all the way to where I predicted them, which I believe was like the 12 or 11 seed, and that's 5-9, 4-9. They're 7-8. I mean, they're 2 games clear of those guys. So if they could enhance that gap, it's funny enough to say it, but the Pistons could be a playoff team. Obviously, I think we're all aware that they would not be a good playoff team. I think a lot of the Eastern Conference is not going to be good playoff teams, but it's impressive nonetheless. They're 2-0 in group play, and they could potentially work themselves into a little spot in the next round. Let me take a look actually at their group, because that'd be a really cool kind of thing. And that's what's fun about the in-season tournament, is you just have teams that can go do stuff you wouldn't expect from them. And obviously the Pistons aren't going to win the finals this year, but it'd be a cool thing for them to make a little in-season tournament run, get some of those young guys some money. They play the Pacers and the Bucks, by the way. That is the rest of their group. So I mean, I think that'd be really, really cool for them if they're able to pull that out. So shout out to the Pistons, great start so far for them in group play. And we move on to the final game of the night that I want to talk about, and that is the Lakers versus the Spurs. Anthony Davis has a 40-point game. LeBron drops another triple-double. He had 4 straight at this point. He just couldn't make it 5 the other night, but he really has looked incredible. And I talked about how the Lakers don't need him to be number 1 option Cavs, Heat, LeBron anymore. And they have certainly done that. I think making him more of a facilitator, letting AD be that main guy of the offense was overall the right decision. And it looks absolutely great so far. It looks absolutely phenomenal. Not only are they playing super well up in that upper half of the Western Conference, currently 9-4 at the 4 seed. I mean, they were, 3-0, 3-1. And then had that little stretch where maybe it is the same old Lakers. And since then, they have certainly proven that to be wrong and have moved their way up the Western Conference ahead of teams like the Nuggets, the Wolves, the Grizzlies, the Mavs, teams that you would have expected to be, moving their way up in this Western Conference. So phenomenal start for them. And also I want to once again shout out the Rockets. 10-4 start, 3 seed out west. I predicted them to be, I believe, like the 11 or 12 seed, just missing out on the play-in in this stacked conference, which also very well could happen. But I think we're going to have one of the teams that I predicted to be out going in, because with the Pelicans' injuries, I predicted them to finish 7th this year, and they've gotten so hurt that they might drop to a point where it's just a point of no return with this Western Conference. And so I just figured, like, I don't know if they're going to be able to do it. Sorry, I had a little bit of technical difficulties there, but we got it all figured out. But anyways, yeah, the Rockets, phenomenal start for them. I will discuss them a little bit more as we move on throughout the season. But again, I had them at 11-12, and they have overperformed incredibly. With the Pelicans underperforming, there has to be a team that's going to come out of there. If, in my opinion, if I think the Pelicans are going to stay in the bottom 5, which I currently believe they will, that adds another team to be able to go in, and that could be 3 of the teams that I picked, which was the Clippers, the Spurs, or the Rockets, to not make it. Any one of them could move through, and right now it is certainly looking like the Rockets will be that team as long as they can stay healthy. Moving on to some more fun points to talk about, just big moments in the NBA throughout Saturday and Sunday. As always, these Monday episodes are a little bit slower because the weekend usually has a little bit less games than throughout the week. Starting first with Fox going off again, 49 points against the Utah Jazz on Saturday, putting up over 100 points over the span of 24 hours because this was back-to-back games for him, but just absolutely incredible stuff, carrying Sacramento when Sabonis is out. It's really, really cool to see a scoring burst like this. Fox is really he's had breakout years before, but this is seeming to be like a true breakout, and it is really, really fun to watch. You then have Giannis go absolutely nuts, a triple-double for him against the Charlotte Hornets. The Charlotte Hornets do get the win as Milwaukee loses, satisfied with or I guess I would say unsatisfied, but they were satisfied with the Giannis pull-up mid-range for the win. He has been hitting those this year, but just didn't hit it at the time where it mattered most. Honestly, it shouldn't have mattered, though, because they got absolutely screwed. LaMelo Ball did absolutely trip himself and somehow got 2 free throws out of it. Just an awful call, and the stuff that kind of makes you go replay review. Why are you even here if you're not going to make an impact on those type of plays? Because that could not have been any more clear that he was tripped. Like I said, it leads to Giannis, which I personally want to see a drive there from Giannis. No matter what happens, go at least force a foul, something, get to your spot. I don't think a pull-up mid-range is exactly what I want from Giannis, although he definitely is capable of making those shots. A real quick day on Saturday because we had a couple games that I didn't really care too much about with the Lakers, Pelicans, and Dallas, San Antonio. Just games that I wasn't really all that interested in, to be honest. But we had one game that ended up being more interesting than expected, and that was Toronto-Boston. Toronto has put up some great fights. Jakob Poeltl had a 35-12 this game. He was going absolutely nuts. But obviously the story of the game has kind of evolved over the last couple days. So Jason Tatum takes that shot at the end of the fourth quarter, absolutely bricks it, all backboard, no rim, gets made fun of on Twitter endlessly. Like, oh my God, he's just not clutch. He's never good in the big moments. Follows it up by hitting a game-winning step-back three-pointer in overtime as the buzzer sounds. And it's an incredible moment. Everyone, all the Boston fans and Jason Tatum defenders, kind of like myself, are like, you see, like, it's just clutch moments. Nobody shoots efficiently in clutch moments. Nobody does. The most efficient people in the clutch are like 40-something%. It's very, very difficult to go get that one shot when everybody knows where the ball is going and everybody knows that the shot is going up and when. And Jason Tatum has not obviously been incredibly efficient, but he certainly has stepped up in times where his team has needed him in the clutch more often, I think, than people give him credit for. But then you followed up with the next day, yesterday, we get the report that Jason Tatum actually traveled on this play. I believe it was pivot foot, spun one too many times or kind of lifted up and went back down. Very, very minimal stuff, but it is the stuff that qualifies for a travel. And the cycle begins again of Jason Tatum hate for no reason. Tatum did nothing wrong. He just hit a game winner. But because he slightly traveled and the refs missed it, people then take it out on him, and it's a never-ending cycle with Jason Tatum. And honestly, I feel for him because I don't think he's actually done anything wrong to deserve some of the hate that he gets. And that brings us along to Sunday, the final day before we got to this episode. A lot more games this day. As we mentioned, the Cavs stayed undefeated. We talked about that Celtics game on Tuesday, and I'll talk about if I think they can stay undefeated and for how long at the end of the episode, like I have been doing as long as they've been undefeated so far this season. But a great game from them with no Donovan Mitchell and it was just great. Speaking of great games with no star, how about the Dallas Mavericks knocking off the Oklahoma City Thunder with no Luka Doncic, 27-17 from PJ Washington. Keeps the Mavericks going and honestly gets them a massive, massive win. They were in free fall and they have ripped off 2 straight wins. Obviously, it's not massive in the scale of the long-term season, but I talked about them on Friday as being 5-7 and tumbling down, and now they're 7-7 and a game or two out for being right back up in that Western Conference towards that end of the play-in. So really, really huge win for them and an impressive win, to be honest. Another thing I talked about earlier is that Nuggets team struggling without Jokic, to be expected. If anybody debates you on why Jokic should be the MVP, that's your argument against it. I mean, they're 0-2 without him, lost to the Grizzlies, lost to the Pelicans. They need him. They really, really do need him. And I hope whatever's going on in his personal life is all okay, since it is personal reasons. So wishing the best for Jokic and his family, whatever happened at all, whatever time he needed, I hope he does take it. But for the Nuggets, it's a couple tough losses. They're still doing fine out west right now, but they might find themselves in a position they didn't expect to be in because of these personal reasons. But once Jokic is back, I fully expect them to work their way out of it. And we've got one final topic on Sunday before we wrap up this episode. Like I said, a short episode this after this weekend, and that was the Minnesota Timberwolves playing the Phoenix Suns. A close game, and I'm going to once again harp on my Wolves a little bit. Should not have been this close. Should never have even been this close. You're playing the Suns without Durant, without Bradley Beal. You're fully healthy. Conley played. DiVincenzo played. You got a great game from DiVincenzo. A great game from Julius Randle. Great game from Naz Reid. Not Ant's finest game, but still something that I think should be perfectly sufficeable against a team without their 2 best players. And you just don't get it done. You just don't get it done. So it's really, really frustrating as a fan, but as long I said they didn't get it done, but they did get it done today. It's very frustrating as a fan to watch this because it's not what I was expecting coming into the season. I was expecting a much, much better start, and to be fair, they still are performing quite well. They're still 8-6. They're still above 500. They're still definitely a good team out west. And I think the biggest positive that I saw in a tweet from one of the Wolves reporters was we're still scraping out wins despite this very slow start. We allowed the Kings to have a guy score 60 and come back down 20. We still got the win. We allowed the Suns to shoot ridiculously efficient. Booker to drop 44, no KD, no Beal, but we still got the win. So once we figured it out, I think they're going to be okay. But as a fan, it's really, really frustrating. And shout out to Julius Randle for that incredible game winner, the first Wolves game winner at the buzzer since 2019. Karl Anthony Towns. Very, very fun moment. And honestly, a moment I think could be very important for Julius Randle. He got off to a bad start in Minnesota after that very first game against the Lakers. Clearly looked a little lazy out there. Some of it could have been attributed to new team, all that sort of stuff. Then he comes out, plays against Sacramento, phenomenal. Then it follows up with another good game against Toronto, and then starts to kind of slow down, kind of get some fans upset again, because again, it's clips that can make fans upset, and he wins all the faith and trust right back there with a big performance on a game that a lot of fans were watching. Debut of the city jerseys, debut of the city court, and he hits a game winner. And I mean, that's the type of stuff that just fans are going to remember. You create a lot of memories for people. I feel like that could be a spark to get his season going and the Wolves season going now that they hopefully are out of this little rut that they have been in. And we finish it out the way we have for the last few episodes. Will the Cavs stay undefeated? And this is the week I am saying no. Because I said I think they are going to lose to the Boston Celtics on Tuesday. Going to be a phenomenal game. Everybody make sure you got your eyes on that game if you have League Pass. I don't know if it's a national televised game. Wouldn't surprise me if they switch it to a national televised game. But I certainly, whether it's on TNT, ESPN, or whatever, I am most certainly going to have my eyes on this game. It's going to be incredible. As for if they stay undefeated, like I said no. If they do beat the Celtics, however, I think they're going to be undefeated until they play the Celtics again, which would be December 1st. If they beat the Celtics, they're 16-0. They then go Pelicans, Raptors, Hawks, Hawks. That would be 17, 18, 19, 20, and 0 before playing the Boston Celtics again on December 1st. So if they can get a win against the Celtics on Tuesday, we could be looking at, I believe that's just the second team ever to go 20-0, only second to the 2015-16 Golden State Warriors, or maybe it's 17-18 Warriors. I can't quite remember, but it's very, very, very possible that they could end up being 20-0 if they do knock off this Boston Celtics team. And that wraps out what was a very short episode today. Like I said, these weekend episodes starting the week definitely are going to be a little bit less than the week-long episode, just because, one, there's one less day, and also because over the weekend football kind of reigns supreme, and you don't get as many of the good matchups, at least not until, April, May, June playoff time. The weekends not really mean much. If you are listening over on Spotify, be sure to go check out the YouTube Wardy Boss 30 or Around the World. Search it up. You will find it. Link is always in the description of any episode. If you're watching me over on YouTube, you can always listen over on Spotify. Same thing, Wardy Boss 30 Around the World. Search it up. You will find it. And the link is always in the description down below. If you made it all the way to the end, I really, really do appreciate it. If you did enjoy the video or the podcast, be sure to leave a like, 5-star, whatever it is. Comment, share, subscribe, anything to benefit the channel and grow the community. I really, really do appreciate it. I will see you guys on Friday, where we will know if the Cavaliers are 15-0, if the Cavaliers are 16 or 17-0 potentially, and knock off the Boston Celtics. It is going to be a phenomenal game. Make sure you have your eyes on it, and I'll see you guys on Friday.